book friends. Welcome back. I'm Cam and I'm still in the corner. I had some extra time and a little bit of energy today, so I thought, why not do my June TBR? As you may have seen from my previous first 3 videos, and I mean first 3 videos ever on YouTube, in one night I sat and I filmed my March, April, and May wrap-ups for everything that I read in those months for 2022. I wasn't really planning on doing another video until my June wrap-up, but before I can wrap up June, I gotta find something to read. So I thought, you know what, maybe I'll share it with you guys now and we'll do a TBR. So I did mention in one of my previous videos that my preferred method of reading is physical books. It means that I'm taking time for myself, I'm getting to relax, and that is the thing that I'm focusing on. I get to touch the pages, I get to read from the page, and that's my time for myself. But that also means that I don't really get to read, 1, nearly as much as I'd like to, and 2, as many books as I would like to be able to film an actual wrap-up video that a lot of people can find interesting because maybe they can find at least one book that they might be interested in. So I've decided to start listening to audiobooks when I am cooking or cleaning or driving. So what I have today are my physical books that I've set aside in my TBR pile, and I'm gonna split this into 2 halves. One, I really would like to get through these in June, if possible, and then the second half are ones that if I somehow miraculously manage to finish 3 physical books in this month, I would hopefully continue on with these. If not, these will be future months reading, obviously. So let's get started. So the first book that I have that I want to be reading in June is Dante Alighieri's The Divine Comedy. Specifically, I'm going to be trying to read Inferno. There are 3 parts to this. They were actually published originally as 3 different unique pieces, all part of the same whole. So I'm going to be reading Inferno, which was his first release, and it's also the most famous, I think, or at least in pop culture, and pretty much everybody's heard Dante's Inferno. That's what this is referring to, and that's the part that I'm going to be reading. Out of this entire book, it's actually quite short. It's only, I think it's like 80 something pages, 100 pages. Yeah. So that's it. So part of why I picked this is because it is so short. I can get through one full story pretty easily, pretty quickly. But it's also because I picked this up after maybe a year, maybe 2 years. No, it's been about a year. I didn't really get too far into it. It wasn't really drawing me in very much, but I was also very distracted, and I'm a mood reader, and I think I picked this up at the wrong time. I think I just wasn't really in the mood to read it, but I am in the mood to try it again. So I'm gonna be giving Inferno another shot, and hopefully this will be kickstarting my reading for June. I do already have 5 Sherlock Holmes audiobooks under my belt for June, so I'm not doing terrible. But for my physical reading, this will be my first one, so I'm gonna get cracking on this for sure. Now, my next one is Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. This is actually gonna be a reread for me. I read this when I was in high school, I believe, and I fell in love with it. I am not gonna talk about this too much right now in my TBR, because there's a very specific reason that I'm reading this and that I'm reading it this month and that it is a reread. And so I don't want to give too much away because I really want to talk about it in my wrap-up at length, because I want to explain, 1, why I love this book, but 2, why I'm rereading it now and why that is, at least to me, something that's a little bit special. So Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. No spoilers. You'll have to see my wrap-up if you want to know more about this book. Okay, so my last physical book for sure that I want to try to get to in June, I have The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. There is a very specific reason I am reading this book as well, and I want to point out that this is a very special version, or a version of this book. It is by Augmented Classics, and it's super cool. You scan the QR code either on the back or on the side, and from your phone you get an augmented reality of the cover. So with the Phantom of the Opera, you get the swinging chandelier that is the most famous scene, the most famous image from this book. and you get music and you get this maniacal laughter in the background, and it's incredibly cool. They do have other classics that have their own QR codes, and they have their unique augmented reality based on their cover. One of the ones I can think of off the top of my head was The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The reason that I'm really excited to read this book, though, is because I've never read this before, and there is a booktuber who goes by the name of Emmy on YouTube, and I will link her channel below. She's really the reason that I wanted to start this channel, because I have absolutely loved watching her videos, and that passion that she has for reading, it really inspired me to start reading again, and then reading again inspired me to want to talk about books to everybody that I can. And that's pretty much the internet, because I don't have a lot of people in my life who are as excited about books as I am. So I figured this is going to be a great creative outlet. So this company reached out to her because her absolute favorite book is Phantom of the Opera. And they asked her to write the foreword. How cool is that? That is just the coolest thing. A YouTuber wrote this foreword. I mean, look at this. She wrote the foreword for her all-time favorite book. How amazing is that? And she has an entire video where she finally got to reveal to her subscribers that she had been asked by this company to write the foreword. So she chronicled her journey to write this foreword when she was asked to, and I just think it is incredible. It is so heartwarming to see how excited she is that she gets to do something with her favorite book and it gets to be published. So I really want to read The Phantom of the Opera, and just hearing her talk about this book, hearing how much she loves it, just made me want to read it. And then of course I had to get the copy that she wrote the foreword for. So I usually don't actually read the forewords for books. I find them to be either too long and too wordy, or they end up with a ton of spoilers for the book. And for a lot of classics, even though they're classics and everybody should know the story, I try to go into them knowing as little as possible. I don't like spoilers. So a lot of times the foreword will give away stuff that I would rather, as the reader, have discovered on my own. So if anything, after I finish a book, I will go back and read the foreword. I will make an exception in this case, though. I cannot wait to read the foreword by Emmy. Her name is Emma, but on her channel it's Emmy. So those are my 3 books that I am super excited about to try to be reading for June. Plus I'm going to be trying to throw in some audiobooks. I did purchase through Chirp, which has like discounted audiobook sales, and they send you an email every day with which recommendations they have and how much they're on sale. And so I did find one that seemed interesting to me, so I bought it. I think it's just called The Big Book of Adventures, and it's just a collection of stories, of adventure stories. A lot of them are full cast narrations, and it was from authors that I'm familiar with. One that sticks out is Jack London. I love Jack London's writings, and so it was like normally a $50 audiobook, and it 58 hours long, and I think I got it for like $4. So that's on my list as partial TBR. I'm not going to be listening to 58 hours for the entire month of June, but when I get to my wrap up, I will be sharing with you my thoughts on any of the audiobooks as well as the physical books. So that's where I'm at as far as my TBR for, we'll call them goals. I am not promising I'm going to get through them, but they are my goals. If, like I said, by some miracle, I finish all of my physical copies and I have time and energy to continue on, I do have another stack that I'm going to be trying to get to. And in that, the first one that I have is Snow Country by Yasunari Kawabata. So Snow Country is a tragic love story. It is quite a short book, so this would probably be my 4th option for June. But because I am a mood reader, I am gonna have to be in the mood when I'm ready to read this. I don't mind a tragic story. I don't need a happy ending, but I do have to be in the mood for what I know is going to be a tragic story. And I do also absolutely love Japanese literature, So it's something that I'm gonna want to savor. So if I can't get to it in a time and a place where I feel like I'm doing it justice, this one will continue to be on my TBR list until I have an absolute perfect time and place to get through the book. My next TBR is 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I have heard just amazing things about this book. I have heard amazing things about this author. He has also written Love in the Time of Cholera. I am familiar with the title of that book, so I've heard about it. I've heard a couple of references to the story. I don't know much about it, but I've heard more about this book lately. And so for my first book from this author, I felt like this is the one I wanted to read. And it is supposedly I believe magical realism is the category that it falls into, but it deals a lot with the play of time and repetition and obviously solitude, but what that means for generations of families kind of reliving the same cycle as I understand it. I've tried to stay pretty unknowledgeable about this book. Like I said, I like to go into books without knowing too much because I don't like to have built up expectations and I don't like to know major plot points. I love to be shocked or excited or relieved by a book when I'm reading it versus knowing, oh, I know that person's gonna die or I know they're gonna get together. So I'm trying to stay as absolutely in the dark about this book as I can. Another book that I have in my TBR/mood read category is Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. And I say that with a slight grimace because I am not best friends with Charles Dickens. I have read one of his books. It was A Tale of Two Cities. Of course it was in high school. I loathed that book. That is on my top 5 probably most hated books. But I have heard some people talk about him as a writer, and I have heard people talk about that book in particular and how they consider, and he considered it, I believe, like his best story. Maybe not his most well written, but the story itself I think was one of his favorites. So I feel like I do need to give that another chance, but instead I'm gonna give Charles Dickens another chance by reading a different book and seeing if maybe that book and I just didn't get along. I have also heard some really, really great things about Charles Dickens as a writer in this book. And I have been watching that channel again that I mentioned, Emmy. She is doing a Tolstoy versus Dickens, The Great Debate, where her and a friend of hers, who is Carolyn Mary Reeds, I will also try to put the link down below, are, like I said, they're doing live shows where they're doing Dickens versus Tolstoy. So they'll pick a book of either Tolstoy or Dickens for the month, they'll read it, and then they will debate it. Each person each month is assigned to defend either Dickens or Tolstoy, and they will debate the work itself. I think that is the coolest thing. I am nerding out over it. So I thought, okay, I love Leo Tolstoy, I love War and Peace. Maybe I need to get on the Dickens bandwagon, at least give him another shot and try it again. So that's why I picked up The Great Debate. No. Great Expectations. I have very low expectations of this book, but I think that might be in my favor because really my opinion can only go up from here. So in my mood read category, I'm definitely gonna have to be in the mood to take on Charles Dickens again, but I am looking forward to it. Okay guys, the last one on my TBR pile, which is literally just a pile on my bookshelf of books that I either keep buying or keep pulling off my shelf going, yeah, I want to read that one too. That would be The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas. I've heard somebody pronounce it Dumas, which would make sense because it's French and they like to not pronounce every letter. Tell me down in the comments below because like I said, I've never taken French. I've taken Spanish, I've taken German, I've taken Japanese. I don't know. If it's Dumas, I would like to know because he's like my favorite author now. I'd really love to be pronouncing it correctly. So give me a hint down below how I should be pronouncing this. So if you saw I think it was my April video, I could not stop talking about The Count of Monte Cristo. I absolutely fell in love with that book. I fell in love with this writer, and I am now ready to devour everything that he's written, because I gotta think everything is gonna be at least half as good as The Count of Monte Cristo, and if it's half as good as that, I will be a happy camper. So I looked it up, and what I really wanted to read next was The Man in the Iron Mask, but I found out that is actually an entire series of books that starts with The Three Musketeers. So I can't read the end of the sequel in a 4-part series. I have to start at the beginning. This was the only copy that my local Barnes & Noble had, but it does come with some good reviews about the actual translation. But look at this. This is a beast of a book. This is like Count of Monte Cristo, I think, in terms of size, but I will say I do like the font size, and I do like the spacing in here, because I found that I actually really care about that when I'm reading a book. I have some older versions of books that I have read, and now when I flip through them, I don't want to read them again, just because the font is so small and everything is so jammed together. It's really hard to, it's actually very tiring on my eyes to read them. So I was really happy that this was the translation that they had, because I really like the printing of it. And for a beast this big, I do not want my eyes fatigued. So this is on my TBR. This is not going to be hard to get to as a mood reader. This is just going to be hard to get to for a time commitment. But I'm super, super, super excited to pick this up as soon as I can. But like I said, I do have the other 3 that I want to get to first. So these, again, of course I'm going to drop them. These are my backup TBR that you will probably see in future videos, because I have a feeling I'm not going to be able to get to them in the month of June, but these I'm also super, super excited about. So stay tuned and we'll see how far I can get. Thank you so much for joining me. I know that this is a little bit shorter than some of my others because I didn't have books to blather on about. I'm still just trying to pick them up to read them, but I really appreciate you joining me. I hope you're as excited about some of these books as I am. Let me know what's on your TBR. Like I said, I'm always looking for a great recommendation, and if it happens to be Alexandre Dumas, all the better, right? And you guys may notice, I just got back from my haircut today. This is my it was raining outside, so the girl tried to put in some curl, and she did an amazing job. She's just fighting my naturally straight hair and the rain that I walked out of the salon into. But this is my first haircut in 3 years because of the pandemic, so I am very excited about it. And it just feels so much lighter. I don't know, those of you with long hair, how great does it feel when you get to chop off a couple inches and get some layers in and you feel like you've lost 5 pounds? It's the best. So I've got a new haircut. I've got a huge stack of books to read. I think June is gonna be a great month. I'll see you at the end of it for my wrap up. Thank you for joining me. I hope you're as excited about your June TBR as I am about mine, but I will see you in a month. Bye.